Hello, detectives and destriers. My name is Stevie Skine, and welcome back to The Great Ace Attorney, which is, I'm still doing that bit, where I've decided that after finishing that last case, it might be time now to take a look at some of the escapades that are available, because I think we can actually do, quite a few of them. Because, even, escapade number 7 here only seems to be involving things related only to the last case that we did. The one I think that might contain some spoilers that we can't go into is the one called In the Baileys, so let's just start from the beginning. "26th of February, 9:17 a.m. British Supreme Court, Lord Chief Justice's office." Here we are again.
Every time we visit here, the atmosphere in this place seems to get more and more overbearing.
Just think, we could be at home with Mr. Sholmes and Iris having a nice, cozy breakfast.
But we have a duty to report the outcome of the case, especially since we're guests here in Britain. So I'm afraid this visit couldn't have been avoided.
I suppose not. But is there even anyone here? You could hear a pin drop in this place. It's too solemn for its own good.
It is very quiet, isn't it? The only sound is the ticking of the great clock as it keeps perfect time.
Pitter patter, pitter patter, pitter patter.
What was that, I wonder? The usual comforting sound of the clock seems to have been joined by a less comforting shuffling sound today.
You're right. Something's disturbing the rhythmical ticking. It sounds rather like an unfit middle-aged man running from pillow to post, clumsily.
Are you calling unfit?
Oh, Inspector Gregson, what are you doing here?
What am I... Isn't it flaming obvious? 58 seconds remaining, Inspector. We'll have to talk later, Shunsan.
Good morning, Little Strongheart.
Wow, he's really looking fiercely at his pocket watch today.
And good morning to you. Business so early in the day.
Oh, yes, well, I mean, it's about the other day,
We had to deliver our report, Lord Strongheart, as our dealings with Mr. Natsumi are now over.
Ah, yes, the little Japanese man. I've already cast my eyes over Van Zeek's report. I must say, the outcome surprised me. I thank you for a job well done.
You're too kind, my lord.
Well, it's not here, it's not there, and it's not over there either.
I hope you don't mind me asking, but what exactly is the inspector doing? He's been harrying around between bookshelves, looking beside himself with worry.
He's looking for a particular work, The Lion's Pride.
Now there's an all too familiar title.
I'd heard it was a popular tale, so I obtained a copy from the rental library. However, it wasn't able to maintain my interest, so I soon cast it aside. I happened to notice a vacant spot on one of my shelves at the time, so I duly stowed the book there. Unfortunately, I no longer remember where it was.
No, not there, not here either. Come on, where's your lions hiding?
The book is due back today, so I've asked Gregson to locate it for me with his investigative prowess. Inside 5 minutes.
I must say, I've never seen anyone working so hard to find something. He's like a man possessed.
Yes. That's because his month's salary is staked upon the outcome.
At whose instigation? Let me guess, the stony-faced lord. And the 5-minute time limit? What's the significance of that?
Oh, there is none. Just my vulgar, mischievous spirit showing itself, I'm afraid.
Oh, by your own admission.
I can't. My feet are killing me.
5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up, Inspector. Which means that the next month it will work unpaid and have no days off. No days off.
Oh, there really are just so many books here. It's overwhelming.
For some, perhaps, I have purchased every book, new or old, on the subject of law from all over the globe.
Who wouldn't believe that a few short decades ago, a place like this couldn't have existed?
What do you mean, Inspector?
When I was a lad, no one ever dreamed of buying books.
Oh, I see. Western books are such luxury items, I suppose, with their leather covers and fancy bindings.
No, that's not it.
Oh.
It was a tax on paper, see?
On paper?
Yeah. I mean, it was abolished about 30 years back now, but it used to be the case. It was a tax levied on any kind of paper. So obviously that meant most folk couldn't afford to buy any books at all.
Ah, so is that why places like the rental library you mentioned before came into existence, Lord Strongheart?
Indeed. Vestiges of the paper tax system, you could say. The general public considers books as items for hire.
London is home to a vast lending library of some 3.5 million books.
You couldn't hope to read all of that even if you were reincarnated 10,000 times.
Even I would choose to rent a book rather than purchase it if I knew I would read it infrequently.
The subject of tax has actually surprised us already in the last few days. It came up in Mr. Natsume's trial. It seems that the window in his room was filled in due to some kind of window tax.
That would be true. Unfortunately, or fortunately rather, the window tax was abolished here some 40 years ago. Sadly, in the East End in particular, many windowless houses remain.
Britain's always everything for tax and stuff. Whatever they can tax, they tax. Sugar, salt, tea, coffee, yeah, you name it. Candles, beads.
Wait, sorry, what was that last one? Did you say beards?
Yep, or the bead tax. Never heard of it?
Never! Why should people have to pay money just because they let their facial hair grow?
Well, you may well ask. I suppose it's because it makes them look self-important.
The Naruhodos will have a strict family policy of no facial hair, I think.
You can relax. The beard tax was confined to the annals of history long ago.
Even so, it's clearly something the British really love. Paying taxes, I mean.
Paying them? Hey, you got that back to front, sunshine.
But you can't deny you've had a lot of funny taxes over the years. You'd never find anything like that in Japan, wouldn't you? Would you, Mrs. Sato? In actual fact, I'm afraid to say that you would, Mr. Naruhodo. What? No, you don't mean... Surely there's never been a window tax in Japan. No, but there have been similarly obscure taxes. For example, in the Edo period, there was a frontage tax. What was that? It was a tax not on windows, but on the entrance to properties. The larger a property's entrance was, the greater the tax that was levied on it. Even today, some ancients survive with extremely narrow entrances due to that old form of taxation. I had no idea.
So you Japanese are as twisted as us Brits.
But we never have beard tax. I mean, that's really going a step too far. Well, no, that's true. I'm not aware of any taxes for beards, at least. What do you mean, at least? Well, rather than tax them, the shogunate did once prohibit them outright. The ruling class prohibited beards? It was called the Great Beard Prohibition. It was an Edo period edict. But why did the powers that be want to ban beards?
Well, because it makes people look self-important. Just an idea.
It would seem that rulers in the East and West had very similar ideas over the years. There have been other unusual taxes in our history, even in our current Meiji period.
There have?
For example, there was before either of us were born, there was a rabbit tax.
There was a tax on those adorable fluffy creatures? Like the ones that make mochi sweets on the moon?
Yes, and it was an extremely large tax too. The government demanded extraordinary sums of money.
This just gets stranger and stranger. What was the reason for that bizarre tax then?
Well, after Japan opened its doors to the world, there was an unprecedented rabbit boom in the major capital.
A boom?
Yes, keeping rabbits became hugely popular, and new species were traded at exorbitant prices. People were even swindled out of all of their money for exotically colored rabbits.
Like colored chicks, I suppose.
Hard to imagine, though. Rabbits are so timid and quiet, and wouldn't have thought one could bankrupt you.
So in response to this worrying social vogue, the government imposed a rabbit tax.
I suppose they couldn't just ignore the problem.
And it worked, because the rabbit boom came to an abrupt end. 6 years later, the tax was abolished.
Well, I hate to say it about my own country, but Japan is strange.
But there's more. After the rabbit tax was abolished, then, of course, society reacted by launching straight into a second rabbit boom.
Oh dear. The government didn't think that one through, did they?
Your ideas about the world are very much altered by the position you hold in society. If you are responsible for the running of the country, you will feel the need to raise revenue keenly. Without a stable taxation system, the whole country could go down the drain.
Well, yeah, I suppose so, but some of these taxes...
That's precisely why ministers of state use their vials to invent new and novel ways of taxing the public.
Novel ways?
Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, if you were one of my country's statesmen.
Me? A British statesman?
Yes. What novel tax would you impose? Pray, give us something truly original. Inside 5 seconds.
What?
Think of something that everyone uses, Miss Naruhodo, and squeeze every penny out of the population.
That's quite the intense stare. I'm very glad Sasada-san isn't in charge.
Your time is up. So, what's your answer?
Well... air, maybe? Yeah, how about air?
An air tax, you say?
Oh, well done, Mr. Naruhodo. A truly novel and fiendish idea.
Well, everyone has to breathe, so while the population is inhaling air, my government is inhaling money.
Blimey, you're a tyrant at heart, eh? Somewhat radical solution to a country's revenue problems, but sadly, not an original one.
No! You mean to say...
Surely not. You mean a tax on air has been imposed in the past?
It was last century. The finance minister of our neighbor, France, proposed it.
What? If I ever go for a visit, I'm holding my breath.
Unsurprisingly, it was strongly opposed by the public and soon scrapped. The minister didn't last long either.
Oh dear. Although clearly that would have been an untenable situation.
The public at large are a force to be reckoned with. Yeah, damn right.
Yeah, I know it.
How about you, Inspector? What new tax would you impose?
Well, let me say, my first thought is a tax on objections.
Sorry?
Been hearing far too many of them recently in court. There's a particular lawyer I have in mind, as it happens. I think an objection tax could be very handy.
Good to see you don't allow your personal feuds to influence your work in public office.
I reckon 5 pence for every objection raised would be about right. A most amusing proposal, Gregson.
A most unamusing proposal, my lord.
Well then, I think it's your turn now.
Sorry? My turn for what?
Why, what else? To locate my missing copy of The Lion's Pride.
Oh!
It's on one of the shelves in this room. Of that, I'm certain. Now, I shall give you 10 minutes. And let's stake your student stipend on it, hmm? Fail to find the book and you'll forfeit next month's payment.
Objection!
Your time starts now. Oh, and one more thing. I believe you just said the word objection. Kindly leave your 5 pence over there before we begin combing the shelves.
This tax is gonna be the death of me.
He does have a sense of humor. A twisted sense of humor. But still. Moving on to In Sholmes' Suite, and this is where we get to see if I can remember and replicate the voice I gave Iris. There's a good chance I can't. 9th of March, 9:23 a.m., Sholmes' Suite.
Good morning, Iris. Good morning, Mr. Sholmes. Oh, morning, Susie. I'll get breakfast on the table for us all.
Mr. Sholmes. Morning.
Good lord, that man still looks handsome out of his dumb coat.
Come now, why the long face?
Oh, I'm sorry. The thing is, I just had a rather strange envelope posted onto my door this morning, with some rather strange things inside.
What strange things? Oh, what was it, Bruno? Do I catch the sense of a mystery in the air?
Nothing so exciting, I'm afraid, Iris. It was just 5 orange pips. I can't imagine what it could possibly...
What? Oh, orange pips, Mr. Naruhodo, and 5 of them.
What's the matter with you? That's a bit of an overreaction, isn't it?
An overreaction, Mr. Naruhodo. You don't understand. It's a warning, a notice of imminent danger to your life.
What? To my life? What's the meaning of all this, Mr. Sholmes?
My dear fellow, why do you make such an inquiry of me?
Because the name of the sender was written on the envelope, and it was yours.
Oh. You're right, Bruno. It says sent by Sholmes, envoy of hell.
So, my little ploy has been exposed. Well, so be it. Cast your mind back, if you will, Mr. Naruhodo, to the time of our dining last night.
Oh, yes. Mr. Sasato cooked Japanese food for us.
Indeed. In particular, you may recall the final norimaki sushi roll that I was about to savor. That is, before you swooped in with your clacking chopsticks and filched it from under my nose.
Oh, I assumed because you'd left it that you didn't want it.
I'd left it, my dear fellow, because I planned to enjoy it in my very last mouthful. Surely, you must have noted my intent by the subtle dilation of my right pupil.
Perhaps a clearer sign would be helpful next time, just an idea.
In summary, the post you received earlier is a notice of my impending revenge. You should be quaking in your boots.
Really? Because I went straight out into the garden and planted them. I'm hopeful we may grow some exotic fruit.
There's no point sending a notice of impending revenge if the person you send it to doesn't know what it is. Well, I knew, of course, because I've read it in this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Sholmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews.
Oh yeah, of course. It's finally been published, hasn't it? I hear it's selling very well.
It is. 12 short stories in 1 volume. I've earned a lifetime spending money already.
And it has further bolstered my name. In fact, only the other day, a Bohemian king sought to engage my services.
Really? That's extraordinary.
Of course, the gentleman persisted with some pretense about being a fishmonger for the duration. But only a fool presumed to be able to deceive my eyes with such a charade.
So, how did you know that he was a king then?
Why, there is no mystery, my dear fellow. A distinct smell of fish accompanied the man's lowly apparel. And though he tried to hide it, the left side of his moustache quivered in quite manifest manner.
Oh, Mr. Sholmes, that's simply brilliant.
Having neatly resolved the case for the man, I was sent a quantity of fresh cod as a mark of his appreciation.
I think perhaps you shouldn't discount the possibility that he actually was a fishmonger.
Is that... Can anyone else smell burning?
Oh yeah, you're right. And look, smoke. I think maybe...
Fire! Fire! There's a fire, everyone. Really? A fire? We must all leave at once. Everyone, out of the building.
No, wait, I have to go back to my room first.
Are you deranged? If you're not asphyxiated by the smoke, then the flames will burn you to death.
But my Daruma doll, I can't let my Daruma burn. It means too much. Sorry, but I've got to make a dash for it upstairs.
Oh, Runa, you're so funny.
This is no time for jokes. Iris, go. Quickly, get out of here.
But there's no fire. Is there, Hurley?
Huh?
Ah, what a delight to see that ploy enacted in the flesh. I wouldn't have dared to dream I should be so lucky.
Miss Sasato?
Indeed it was a ploy. A devilment engineered by my puckish spirit.
It was all a trick, but why?
It is a simple experiment of the mind, Mr. Naruhodo. When his life is threatened, a fellow is compelled instinctively to protect that property to which he attaches matching importance.
And after your own life, Runo, the most important thing to you seems to be your Daruma doll.
Let's not dwell on that, shall we, Irish? So, you knew all along, Miss Sasato, that it was a trick?
Yes, of course. The very ploys described in this book. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. On sale now in all major London bookshops and receiving rave reviews.
Not again.
I have used that device quite satisfactorily in the past to solve a case.
Oh yes, it was a great success, wasn't it? But then it became something of a habit, didn't it? You started yelling fire at every crime scene. In the end, people started to pay no attention to you at all.
Yes, that's true. There was a time when I was known as the Sholmes who cried wolf.
I think there's a lesson to be learned in there somewhere.
But sadly, my little ploy failed to yield results this time. Iris was utterly unmoved.
What do you mean?
Well, I was anticipating that Iris would immediately expose her secret hiding place. The location of the nest egg she must have cached somewhere in this room.
Nest egg? You think Iris has some secret savings?
Why, naturally, the book is selling like hotcakes after all. It is simple deduction indeed to conclude that the profits must be concealed here within these walls.
Oh, Mr. Shums, are you in need of money? Ah, I bet I know what it is. It's that new microscope that's gone on sale, isn't it, Hurley?
What else? I have such a strong desire to own one, yet my purse is £1 too light. And as no offer of a loan has been forthcoming, I have been forced to resort to an alternative stratagem. Stealing from a child?
Sorry, Hurley, but I'm not falling for that. Not coming from the Sholmes who cried wolf.
Ugh, how vexing.
You really shouldn't be trying to steal a 10-year-old's savings, you know.
My book is full of little tricks like that, you see. The armory of the great detective.
Except that in this case, both the orange pips and the fake fire fell a little flat, didn't they?
Oh, I have plenty more tricks up my sleeve. Take, for example, the case of the Boscombe Valley mystery.
I'm already filled with dread just from the title.
It is a tale of an extraordinary skill on the part of the great detective, the skill of tracking.
Tracking?
When I arrived at the scene of the crime in the eponymous valley, there were footprints everywhere. But my eye was immediately drawn to one set in particular.
Oh, Mr. Shums, your detective instincts are truly remarkable.
As you know, my dear madam, no detail, no matter how small, escapes the scrutiny of these eyes. So, I tracked my quarry, following the trail of his footprints all the way to the man's place of residence.
It led you directly to the culprit's house? What a triumph!
You misunderstand. It led me directly to my own house, my dear fellow.
Huh?
For the footprints were, in the final analysis, those made by my own shoes.
Hurley had left here for Boscombe Valley as soon as he received the telegram about the case, you see. And then he followed his own trail straight back here to Baker Street.
Now, Iris, please, you may make it sound almost humdrum, but I assure you, it is no easy feat. Tracking of this nature is a skill possessed only by the great Sherlock Holmes.
I mean, it is impressive for him to be able to track his own footsteps like that far. That is genuinely impressive. It's just misapplied a little bit, perhaps.
You're right, it really is extraordinary.
Quite so. Extraordinary is the word, and let it be the last on the subject. Anyway, needless to say, I subsequently went on to solve the case with various other deductions.
Yes, it's the various other deductions that I'm interested in.
Ah, well, you shall have to read the book then. I'm sure Iris has penned it with her usual flourish.
Oh, absolutely. I put an ingenious spin on the great detective's exploits.
You must have been very ingenious to make this man sound even remotely credible as a detective.
Wait, is that? Does it smell like something's burning again?
We've had enough devilment for one day, Mr. Sholmes. Put your puckish spirit to bed.
I assure you, this has nothing to do with me or my spirit.
What?
Oh no, the smoke is getting thicker.
You mean it's not a trick this time? There really is a...
Fire! Fire! There's a fire, everyone!
Ah!
Mr. Sato, where you going?
Stand aside, Mr. Naruhodo.
Easy, Mr. Sholmes, what are you... Mr. Sholmes? Why did you just chuck that busted Napoleon on the floor? Oh, look at that. In amongst all the broken porcelain. Coins, sovereigns in fact, worth a whole pound each.
Come, everyone, we must leave at once. Evacuate the building.
You fell for it, Hurley. Hook, line, and sinker.
Ah.
Wait, you mean Iris?
I certainly wouldn't have guessed that's where you'd hidden it.
Do you mean to say that this smoke was...
My own puckish spirit needs to come out and play sometimes too, you know.
What?
Ah, of course. I know what it is, Iris. It is that indoor herb garden set that went on sale last week, isn't it? That's what you're after.
I want one so desperately, but I'm £4 short. And even though you told me you didn't have any money to spare before, I knew you had a secret nest egg somewhere in this room.
Ah, you've outwitted me again.
You really shouldn't let yourself be outwitted by a 10-year-old child, you know.
So, thank you for the loan, Hurley. Oh, but wait.
What's the matter?
There's Susie. She disappeared.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She ran off up the stairs before, didn't she?
Oh, what are you all still doing in here? We have to evacuate. It won't be long before the fires... It's... Ah! Sorry, Susie. Children will get up to mischief once in a while, you know. It's all perfectly harmless.
Harmless, maybe, but oh, so devious.
Oh well, at least nobody was hurt.
Apart from Napoleon and my secret hoard. Now, tell us, Mr. Sato, what is it that you went so fleet-footedly to fetch?
Sorry? Oh, no, nothing. It's just, no, this is nothing. Susie, that's your notebook detailing all of Runo's trials, isn't it? It's bulging at the seams.
What?
Ah, a testament to the various people you've helped over the past months.
Mr. Sato?
Well, I am your judicial assistant, after all. I would do anything to ensure the safety of those records. Even risk my life, if necessary. I mean, it's very important to me. It's like a diary of everything we've achieved together.
I'm getting all teary-eyed now. Yes, in stark contrast to a certain someone who would have fetched his Daruma doll, I must say. Ah! 5th of March, 2:40 p.m., Naruhodo's legal consultancy. Hey, they've spruced up the room.
Hello! I'm back!
Oh, hello, Mr. Naruhodo. Did you have a good outing? Hi, Runo. What's the matter? Your eyes are as big as dinner plates.
Iris, I wasn't expecting to see you here.
I've just made some tea, Mr. Naruhodo. Would you like a cup?
A cup or two, yeah. Definite tea. Ha ha ha!
All right, Runo, what's going on? You're acting extremely strangely.
What? Me? No! No! Yeah, I'm as normal as can be. Normality itself, see?
Not again, Mr. Naruhodo. Sorry, what again? What do you mean, Susie? Whenever he goes out on his own lately, he always seems to come back with a peculiar new purchase.
Peculiar? Peculiar? What's peculiar about the things I've bought?
Well, you seem to think that anything British is a curio that you simply must have. You keep buying items of bric-a-brac even though you don't know what they are. Well, there are rather a lot of bric-a-brac shops and pawnbrokers and the like around here.
Well, it's when I've been to Lord Strongheart's to give my weekly report. I'm always so nervous beforehand. On the way home, I just find myself in those shops and... yeah, alright, I can't deny it, I bought something.
You're right, you can't deny it, because your eyes are wider than ever. You really ought to put up a warning sign about them. They're bigger than some potholes around here.
Well, it's hard to resist things in the bric-a-brac shop. It's all so cheap. Mr. Sholmes has given me lots of useful advice about how to pick out the real bargains.
You must remember, Runo, that Hurley likes to have fun with you. Take his advice with a big pinch of salt.
Well, that's true. That thing you told me was a pot stand wasn't a pot stand at all. But I'd never have guessed it was a collapsible top hat.
No, and I'd never have guessed that you could fill up this once empty room so quickly. Honestly, it's overflowing with things we don't need now. I mean, look at those scales. Not once have you weighed something on them.
I know, but ever since I first stood at the defense's bench in court, I don't know why, but I just really wanted my own little set of scales.
Let's see it then, Mr. Naruhodo. What have you come home with today?
Oh, well, it's one of these.
What is it? It looks all dry and shriveled up in a ball. Really, Mr. Naruhodo, what is it?
It's a sea anemone.
An anemone?
Yeah, I mean, I know it doesn't look like it at the moment. It's all shriveled up, like you said.
Aren't sea anemones living creatures? The ones that dance about in the seabed?
Yeah, exactly, the ones that dance about in the seabed.
Oh, they sell sea anemones in bric-a-brac shops here in Britain.
Well, I don't know whether they normally do or not, but I do know that I bought one today.
But why, Runo?
Well, yeah, for the aquarium. Aquarium, of course.
Aquarium. I don't know that word.
Well, according to the shopkeeper, keeping sea creatures in tanks was hugely popular here in London before.
Oh yes, some people have some beautiful fish in seawater tanks, it's true. Having an aquarium became popular because the old glass tax was abolished.
Here's those taxes again. Oh yeah,
there it is again, rearing its ugly head, the subject of taxation. It was a real craze for a while. Everyone in London had one. For a while? Yes, it didn't last that long. People's enthusiasm soon waned. It's just far too much work to be changing the seawater regularly in a city like London. Never a truer word said, I'm sure.
You'd think people might have realized that from the start, really, wouldn't you?
Anyway, that was long before I was born. So now everyone jokes that there's an unloved aquarium covered in dust in every attic in the capital.
And it's true, there's one in this attic too. When I told the man in the bric-a-brac shop about it, he had these words of wisdom. That's why this is the age of the sea anemone. And that made a lot of sense to me.
It made sense to you, did it? But Runo, this anemone is completely dried up.
You just need to soak it in water overnight and it'll be good as new. That's what the man said.
I'm not sure it works in that same way as dried wakame seaweed, Naruhodo.
Once I save some money, I'm gonna buy some prawns to keep this little fellow company.
Oh, how exciting! Your office will be teeming with life. Will it really?
Britain is a funny country, though. I mean, a sea anemone craze?
Well, they say people in glass houses about comments like that here, Mr. Naruhodo. Don't forget that there was a very curious rabbit craze in our own country not so very long ago.
A mortifying chapter that people will try to erase from the history books 100 years from now, I'm sure.
You know, there was another craze as well before the aquarium one. Have you heard of Wardian cases?
Wardy? What? No, I've definitely never heard of them.
They were little glazed cases for growing plants indoors, I believe.
Oh, I see, for plant lovers to raise their favorite tropical plants.
That's right, like different types of ferns.
Ferns?
Do you mean those rather dull plants with lots of fronds for leaves? They're not dull at all. Ferns are lovely plants. I think people wanted to recreate the exotic foliage of the tropics in their own homes.
So they grew ferns? I mean, ferns, sea anemones... Londoners certainly have a knack for the obscure.
Well, thinking about it... My grandfather loved the moss on his bonsai. He looked after it better than the trees.
It seems like the more obscure something is, the more it interests people.
Maybe. Anyway, the Wardian craze didn't last very long. Now, most of those little glass cases are just gathering dust, I think.
But I haven't seen one in your room, Iris.
Oh, very observant of you, Susie. Yes, that's right. Mine's certainly not gathering dust. I grow tropical herbs in it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I really must ask you to stop all this frivolous buying of strange things.
Yes, alright. Sorry. It's just that, well, like, think about Mr. Sholmes' room. He has all sorts of peculiar trinkets lying around.
Oh, well, yes, that's true. And they seem to be growing in number. Recently I've noticed a blowpipe, a few beryl crystals set in a twisted piece of gold, a gold-rimmed pince-nez.
I spotted a small gramophone record in there the other day, so I slipped it onto the gramophone. But it was just a whispering voice saying Norbury and nothing more. What could it possibly be about?
Those are mementos of cases that Hurley has solved over the years.
Exactly, that's what I want to create in here, just that sort of atmosphere.
Ah, a room full of meaningful trinkets, each with their own unique history, you mean?
Yeah, that! Yeah, I knew you'd understand, Mrs. Sato.
But, Mr. Naruhodo, none of the things you've bought for the room have any connection with any of our cases.
Don't they?
Well, for example, take that splendid but rather weather-beaten top hat. That wasn't used as evidence in any of the cases we've worked on, was it? Oh, so you have two top hats if you count the collapsible one as well?
No, the collapsible one is a pot stand. As far as I'm concerned, anyway. But the other day, when we were in court, they were everywhere, weren't they? Top hats, I mean.
Well, here in Britain, of course, they're the mark of a true gentleman, so it's hardly surprising. If a man isn't wearing a top hat when he ventures out of doors, he'll be looked down upon. Gosh, it has very strict rules, doesn't it? The English Gentleman's Code?
I've been wondering how I'd look in a top hat recently. After all, my university uniform is black as well, so I think it would be very in keeping.
Oh, what a good idea. Go on then, Runo, try it on.
Blank stares.
The lesson here, I suppose, is that the juxtaposition of student and gentleman is just so strange and wrong.
Well, it rather didn't suit me anyway. I mean, these hats are ridiculous. I'd be willing to bet every foreigner who sees one of these for the first time thinks exactly the same thing. Why is that man wearing a chimney on his head?
People in glass houses remember, Runo.
What do you mean?
Well, what about Japanese troll market top knots? Those haircuts are the height of ridiculousness.
True.
At least you can take a hat off once you have a chon mark.
I don't know how to pronounce that properly.
It's chon your head for good. I'd be willing to bet every foreigner who sees a chonmage... But with a chonmage? Because, like, Japanese doesn't have silent vowels, right? So it's chonmage. Or chonmage. I don't know. Thinks exactly the same thing. Why is that man wearing a cannon on his head? I suppose that's what it means to have different cultures, isn't it?
On the subject of hats, the one Mr. Sholmes always wears is really strange, don't you think?
I beg your pardon, Mr. Naruhodo. What a thing to say. The hat is the very essence of Mr. Sholmes.
I don't know, the big hair seems more the essence of him.
Yes, without his deerstalker, the great detective would be unrecognizable.
It's called a deerstalker? That's a surprisingly swanky name.
It's the hat of a hunter, just like the flat cap. I made up my mind long ago to visit Regent Street and buy one for myself.
I'm not sure it's gonna fit over your hair.
Well, I think it's perfect for a great detective who stalks his criminal quarry. What do you think is strange about it, anyway?
Well, you've seen it. It has two brims, one on the front and one on the back. Why do you need two brims on a hat? Surely the one on the front is enough, no?
One moment, please.
If you ask me, it's just Mr. Sholmes' madcap personality coming through. I bet it's so that he doesn't have to think about which way around to put it on or something like that.
Mr. Sholmes does not have a madcap personality. He always has clear head. Deerstalkers were made for hunters who had to hide in thickets when they were stalking their prey. The brim at the back was designed to stop the stalks of the plants scratching the back of their necks. Oh, so that's the reason. Thank you, Iris, for educating us.
Mr. Sholmes doesn't spend a lot of time in thickets, though, does he?
Well, no, that's true.
I'm telling you, it's just his impetuous personality. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it, firmly. Ah, here you all are. Oh, good afternoon, Mr. Sholmes.
I've not long since made some tea, Mr. Sholmes. Would you like a cup?
I see I've come at a good time, Mr. Sato. Thank you. Now, I have something I should like you all to see. I've designed myself a brand new Great Detective's hat.
But what the? Is a brim?
At the front and at the back and at both sides. 4 brims in total.
Your observation is quite correct, my dear madam. I'm a busy man, you see. But with this hat, whichever way I put it on, I shall always have it pointing the correct way.
Just get a round, like just get a round hat.
Oh.
With my previous hat, I could, in an impetuous moment, wear it erroneously with the brims on either side.
That's impressively clumsy, I would say.
And I must regretfully say, I think your madcap theory is correct after all.
But really, Mr. Sholmes, with brims on all 4 sides like that, wouldn't it just be better to wear a top hat instead?
Oh, yes. Then however you put it on, you'd have a brim all around.
What? So true. So true. How could I have been so blinkered to this fact until now?
Well, fortunately, I happen to have 2 top hats here. If you just lift the pot off it, you're welcome to try that one there.
Indeed I shall, my good fellow. Much obliged.
But they're not going to actually show it on his character model, are they? Okay, but the blank stares are good too.
Oh dear Hurley, it looks terrible. More terrible than I could possibly have imagined.
Oh, that's not good. Maybe it's because of your long face. Paired with a tall hat, it just doesn't work.
Well, I think it's very nice, Mr. Sholmes, even if it will have the whole world in fits of laughter.
Ugh! I should never have meddled with it. Give me the Deerstalker forevermore.
And give me my university regulation hat forevermore.
There's still hope that you'll graduate one day, Mr. Naruhodo. Don't give up.
Man, each of these takes like 15 minutes to a T. That's amazing.
Moving on to Mr. Natsume's room.
I guess this is a Sherlock episode. 23rd of February, 6:09 p.m., Mr. Natsume's room.
So, Mr. Natsume, are you really returning home to Japan?
Yep, indeed I am. Everything's arranged already.
We'll be sad to see you go. And after Runo worked so hard to prove your innocence as well. What a shame. It feels like it was all wasted effort.
Don't say that! I know what you're suggesting. Now calm down, Mr. Natsume. It's all fine, really.
You are in good company here, sir. If you fear the Reaper, you needn't hide the fact.
I'm a proud citizen of the Empire of Japan. I'm not a scaredy cat.
Talking of cats, Mr. Sholmes just casually threw one among the pigeons there.
A man like me belongs in Japan, not here. That's where I've come to realize.
I wonder. A moustache such as yours is eminently suited to London, I would say.
There goes Mr. Sholmes throwing another cat in. The moment I arrived in the city, I noticed. Everyone in London laughs at me behind my back, like hyenas. Hysterical hyenas ha-haing horribly.
I'm sure that's not true, Mr. Natsume.
Oh, but it is. Whenever I turn around and peer down the fog-filled street, all I see is foreigners everywhere.
Mr. Natsume, you're the foreigner in this particular, but okay.
Well, there's you, Runo, and Susie in here, so that's 3 foreigners out of 5 people. I take your point.
Only the other day, I was taking a stroll through the fog as usual when a young man approached me from ahead. He was pale and gaunt, his back arched like a cat. Observing his wretchedness moved me so deeply. I thought to myself, I'm not the only one suffering in this hell. But do you know what? Can you imagine? It was just my own reflection in a shop window. A stunning, stinging, stupefying surprise.
Don't forget slap in the face.
Everyone started laughing at me. Gentlemen thereabouts, ladies passing by. Even the man in the shop window.
Ah, yes, and a certain great detective would like to be included among the mirthful.
Mr. Sholmes is really going for Sosuke-san today.
Well, I for one think you're a very handsome man, Mr. Natsume.
There, did you hear that? This 10-year-old girl thinks you're handsome. Isn't that wonderful? That makes me feel suspiciously warm inside.
He looks genuinely delighted.
The point is, we Japanese are humble and modest. Studying in foreign soil surrounded by foreign people, how could anyone possibly enjoy that? No one could. It's impossible. If you're genuine Japanese.
If you say so. Actually, it would appear that there is someone. A Japanese man who studied in a foreign country and seems to have thrived on the experience.
There he is.
Mr. Ogai Mori. I believe he studied in Germany.
Mr. Mori, pray, tell us more of the fellow.
Well, today he's a very successful author in Japan.
I've heard of him. He's a professor who wrote My Hime, isn't he?
My Hime?
Well, I suppose in English the title would be Dancing Queen, maybe? Dancing Queen, only 17.
Oh, I see. A tale of a woman who walks her way through the world, perhaps. You really needn't make up a silly translation, you know. It's already officially called The Dancing Girl in English. It seems Mr. Mori greatly enjoyed his time in Germany. He became close with a local lady while he was there.
Close, you say? With a local lady? A compatriot's criminally contradictory conduct.
Well, I suppose your experience of studying abroad depends to a large extent on your character.
As they say, many men, many minds.
Mr. Mori has an open mind. Mr. Natsume, a closed one.
Possibly a slightly black and white view, do you think, Mr. Sholmes?
Well, anyway. If that's how you feel about being abroad, why did you choose to study here?
Wasn't it to further our nation's understanding of the English language or something? Yes, that's right.
So, what were you doing in Japan before you came to Great Britain, then?
I was a school teacher. Of English, of course.
A bit cursory, perhaps, but I've managed to discover some information about Mr. Natsume's teaching days.
That's just a little outside the field of law, isn't it, Mr. Sato?
Well, let me pose you a question, Mr. Naruhodo. If you had to translate the English phrase, I love you, into Japanese, what would it become?
Daisuki? Or aishiteru? Suki desu? That's easy. Aishiteru or suki desu.
Wrong. According to Mr. Natsume's teaching, at least.
What?
Would you like to explain, Mr. Natsume?
Oh, yes, of course. Your research was very thorough. I always used to tell my students that we Japanese don't express ourselves that way. Rather, we might say, Suki ga kirei desu ne.
Oh god, pronouncing that in that accent. Good grief.
My dear Mr. Natsume, I must interject. Suki ga kirei desu ne would translate as, the moon is beautiful, isn't it?
I know that!
The point is that we Japanese are reticent when it comes to expressing our emotions. We prefer to show our feelings of adoration, our suki, by appreciating the beauty of the moon, the tsuki.
Oh, right, it's the pun. Of course, it's the pun.
Ah, using the tsuki to express the suki. It's an amusing play on words, I see.
No, or in language you might understand better. Bad Shomes! It's not a play on words, it's subtle, it's humble, it's fleeting and beautiful. It's art!
Isn't it just being shy?
Well,
My dear fellow, the foreign dancing girl would forever be out of your reach with such an attitude. Imagine how the great Mr. Mori would act. He would win the lady's heart in a flash, with a well-placed and unrestrained, I love you.
That's smooth, Mr. Mori! Am I destined to live in his shadow forever?
Just what sort of man is he in that imagination of yours?
Well, the fact is, I just can't settle in this foggy London town with all its foreign inhabitants. I've lost count of the number of different lodgings I tried before I found myself here. As it happens, I even lived on Baker Street at one time.
No, really?
A Sao scholar lives near there, a man by the name of William James Craig. His knowledge of Sao is unsurpassed. He's been a great inspiration to me over the...
Forgive the interruption, but am I supposed to be familiar with this Sao of which you speak?
Well, it's Shakespeare, of course. Shakespeare! But in Japanese, we write it as Sa and O. It's a phonetic representation using kanji characters, so England is Aigirisu, and America is America.
Come to think of it, we use the same character as ri in one word and risu in another.
Talk about confusing. Okay, this is a little bit outside of my linguistic knowledge, but basically, as I recall, the Japanese writing system came about in like a few different ways, but firstly, it was imported from China and Korea. Like, it's the same writing system that they use over there. And then, over a long period of time, it was adapted into various sort of local scriptures that gained prominence in various parts of Japan. And then eventually, some administrations attempted to sort of unify the language, especially the written language, and that's when we get stuff like hiragana and katakana and then kanji, of course, like these distinct writing systems that all form part of the Japanese language. And a lot of the characters, especially the kanji, but like there's situations where certain characters can be interpreted in various different ways depending on context, depending on feeling, which leads to a situation where it can seem that there is two words for everything. Like, everything has, like, two meanings in the Japanese language, which it doesn't, as far as I know. Again, not a Japanese scholar, I'm not a scholarly linguist of Japanese, but that seems to be what this scene is playing on, is the idea that the Japanese language is kind of obsessed with puns and wordplay and, like, using the subtleties of language to communicate more than just the literal meaning of the words, in a way that is genuinely very different from Western languages.
So Shakespeare is Sao in Japanese. Presumably the Sa is a brutal attempt at the first Shay, in which case, where's the Caspier?
I'd never thought of that. We only have the O left.
Which could, even in the most charitable interpretation, only be a brutal attempt at old man.
It seems to me that whoever had the job of deciding on the characters for his name got bored very early on.
Complete kanji character catastrophe!
So then,
On to the burning question. What about me? How do you write my name?
Sorry?
Sherlock Sholmes, my dear fellow. There must be Japanese characters for my name.
Oh dear. I'm sorry, Mr. Sholmes, but none exist that I'm aware of.
What? Am I really nothing to you Japanese? In that case, it is a matter of paramount importance. You must construct my name in kanji at once.
We could use a kanji that's pronounced so to start with, and then use one more to give, perhaps? I think that would be about right, Mr. Sholmes.
But that's almost the same as Sao, isn't it?
Yes, you employed the dreaded O. I don't want people to confuse me with an old man who died centuries ago.
I'm sure the world's greatest literary figure would rather not be confused with you either. Well, Shakespeare isn't the world's greatest literary figure. Just, like, he's good, but let's not get overexcited here.
Well, the world's greatest detective is still youthful and so full of vigor. So how about so handsome?
Oh yes, that sounds wonderful. I'm sure everyone will be calling you that 100 years from now.
How can she say that with a straight face?
What about me then? Iris? Perhaps Aihime? Since the second character doesn't seem to matter. Aihime. Oh yes, Princess of Love. That's an adorable name for you, Iris.
Stop, please! With a name like that, Mr. Mori is likely to turn up at any moment and rashly declare I love you! This Mori-san has become quite a character in Sosuke-san's mind.
And you, Mr. Naruhodo. Might I venture Kurobozo as a fitting name for you, as in the Dark Monk?
Oh, that's very good. I described you perfectly, Runo.
So you think I'll be wearing this black varsity uniform for the rest of my days, do you?
But Mr. Naruhodo already has a Japanese name. I don't believe he needs another. Well, anyway. We were talking about your life here in London, weren't we, Mr. Natsume? You should just get out and have fun.
The landlady has said as much to me, too. Mrs. Garadeb? But it wasn't fun at all. It was frightful.
Whatever do you mean?
A cycle incident!
An incident? On a bicycle?
Oh yeah, come to think of it. There's an old bicycle parked just outside here, isn't there? It's in a sorry state, though. I tried to say no to her, but she insisted I took it for a ride. Perhaps my pronunciation was wrong. So I took my life in my hands and attempted to ride the steel spider-webbed stallion to a nearby park.
I really don't think there's anything wrong with your pronunciation, Mr. Natsume.
Joan Garadeb just isn't the kind of woman to take no for an answer. If you're going to die, you might as well die in beautiful surroundings, so the park was my first thought. After a whole day of dicing with death, I emerged with only relatively minor bruises.
So, you got the knack of it?
Don't be silly! Die isn't something you can learn to do.
Mr. Natsume, you keep talking about dicing with death and dying and so forth, but riding a bicycle is supposed to be fun.
Oh no, that's just what people tell you, but it's an old wives' tale.
Is it?
I mean, just consider the real name of the vehicle. It's not called a dicycle for nothing. How anyone expects to use such an aptly named vehicle to move forwards is beyond me. Pedal power promises pain.
I didn't think it was possible to get worse with practice.
I'm lucky to be alive. Although I must say, after looking death in the eye for a whole week, I did at least manage to mount the steed reliably. And notwithstanding a few wobbles, I found I could make progress in the forward direction. What a triumph.
Deduction is much the same. When first presented with a problem, the mental exertion of trying to solve it leads only to bitter disappointment. But after a week of picking one's way carefully along the path of reasoning and thought, one begins to see results. So, is that why all of your off-the-cuff deductions always seem half-baked?
What a wonderful insight into your extraordinary mind, Mr. Sholmes.
Unfortunately, after wobbling down the street, I noticed there were little stones everywhere. Death traps. Not that way, I said to myself. But the wild vehicle wouldn't listen. It wobbled me on and on down the street. So, of course, I hit one of those deadly stones and the crazy colt threw me. It's just my luck. Dicicles are the epitome of my pitiful life.
I wish I could disagree.
On the same subject, I'm sure there's a famous American author who's written about having a similar experience.
Oh yes, I've read that essay too, Iris. Some of us are better read than others, I see.
Well, no more dicicles for me.
Oh, Mr. Nutsmith, at least you have an interesting anecdote to take with you back to Japan, if nothing else.
You always manage to put a positive spin on things, don't you, Miss Sato? Personally, I haven't mounted a bicycle for some time.
No, me neither.
That's good.
So, how about a jaunt? We shall all ride out together.
Huh?
Well, that sounds great. I'll perch behind Miss Sato.
But the sun's gone down. It'll be pitch black before long.
London street lamps are very bright, you know, and the fog isn't too thick today.
And my beloved ride is all bent out of shape.
My dear fellow, if you are bound to top of the vehicle anyway, it is fitting that it's already bent out of shape.
It's settled then. Come along, Mr. Natsume. Shall we go?
Suki ga kirei desu ne.
I'm sorry. Suki ga kire desu ne. Don't tell me that's his translation of no thank you as well. Indeed, Mr. Natsume, the moon is at its most beautiful at precisely this time in the evening.
Oh,
We're not Japanese. You can't beat around the bush with us.
what a weird and wonderful world.
But yeah, that was all kind of over my head, like, kind of beyond the range of my actual knowledge. So again, the stuff I got wrong, and if you happen to know, like, better, which presumably a lot of people do, let people know down in the comments. I'll like and pin it. So yeah, when you watch this episode, you might find better explanations in the comments. Anyway, I guess we do number 7, and we leave number 8 for last. 30th of April, 12:20 p.m., Briar Road.
Sir, Constable Riley Pete reporting for duty. Thanks to the court officers of Law and Six. I'm back on my beat here in the capital, doing my best for the good citizens of London, sir.
Ah, my Rowley, back in his Barbie's uniform. You couldn't look more handsome if you tried.
Oh, my love. You say the sweetest things. Oh, Pat.
Oh, Rowley.
Pat Trolley, right? Like, oh my god.
To us, Lordman Seeks isn't the Reaper of the Bailey at all.
Oh no, of course not. He's the patron saint of Bobbies.
Patron saint? Oh yes, Pat, you're so right, my darling. Keeping us in pocket he is. On my first day back at the
I keep slipping into Natsume's.
On my first day back at the job, what did I find in the gutter? A shilling, my love. A whole shilling.
Oh, Rowley, I always believed in you. I always knew that one day you'd find some big small change.
With just that shilling, I could buy a cheap bunch of containing a single flower, my sugar.
A single flower? Oh, how romantic.
But I'm so sorry, Pat. Only moments ago, that shilling disappeared.
Disappeared? But how, my love? How?
I think maybe. No, I'm sure. It was this girl here, sir. You swapped my precious shilling, didn't you? You cheeky little diver.
Oh no. Blimey. You took your time getting around to me, didn't you? I thought that lovey-dovey stuff was never going to end. So, shilling, you say? Lifted from your word? Don't know nothing about it? Where's the evidence, eh?
There, the evidence is dancing around on the back of your hand, young lady. You stole it from me. You lifted it from my pocket just now. You've got a nerve stealing from a bobby. Cutlass, this coin's mine. How would you know, anyway? How'd you know if you'd taken just now or not? Dear me, you don't get it, do you? We've hardly got a penny to our name, so that coin felt as heavy to me as a bar of gold. Eh? I'm telling you, the moment I left my pocket, I knew. I felt myself getting a good few pounds lighter. Yep, that coin has got my blood, sweat, and tears all over it. What's the matter with you, Mr. Naruto? Me? Sorry? When ladies in trouble, a true gent's supposed to be there to help. Stay away, not on hour later. This isn't my fault. I haven't stolen anything. What about you, Sholmes? I thought you were supposed to be a great detective.
Dear me, Miss Lestrade. You took your time getting round to me, didn't you? I thought that long dispute was never going to end.
You only said, give us a minute, when we spotted you over the road and said hello. And that was 10 minutes ago, Jeannie. We've just been standing here listening to your quarrel with this Bobby. I beg your pardon, madam. We shouldn't be troubling the public with police business. Well, that shilling belongs to us, doesn't it, really? Of course it does, my love. It's just for you and me, my darling.
This was just supposed to be a nice stroll with Iris and Mr. Shums before afternoon tea. Why did we have to run into another fiasco on Briar Road? I don't really see how we could be of any help, Gina. There's no way of knowing who the coin really belongs to if it was just dropped in the gutter.
I wouldn't be so sure of that, Runo.
What?
I have a feeling I might know the answer to the question of whose coin that is.
Ah, my bright young fellow lodger. Let us hear your deduction.
Well, there's actually a reason why I suggested a stroll down Briar Road.
Oh? What reason?
You see, I was here yesterday and, well, I dropped a little something. So I wanted to come look for it while enjoying an afternoon stroll.
Wait, you dropped something? You don't mean...
It was the pocket money that Hurley gave me.
What's this, Iris? You dropped that, did you?
I'm sorry. I went to the market on Lime Street yesterday to pick up some herbs, you see. But on the way I must have dropped it. The 1 shilling coin you gave me.
Oh! A 1 bet?
Yes, and when I thought back over the route I took, I realised I must have dropped it here. Constable, you haven't seen it, have you? It's all my pocket money, and now it's gone. I'm afraid I don't know anything about that, young lady. What rotten luck dropping your money like that, sorry?
I dare say the constable and his companion could give you a run for their money with their wide eyes.
If it's all the same to you, Mr. Shums, I think I'd prefer not to be used as a yardstick for looking guilty. Well, it's stuff really, ain't it, Horace? You dropped it, so it ain't yours no more. Anyway, you know what they say. What goes around comes around. So don't feel bad. Bad luck, Iris. Doesn't look like you're going to get your coin back.
No, I can't believe I've lost it. And straight after Hurley gave it to me as well.
Yes, regrettable indeed. I seem to recall that particular coin was rather significant.
What do you mean significant?
To be specific, it was especially significant to you, Runo.
Significant to me? You don't mean... It was the coin from last night's wager?
The very same, my dear fellow.
Watch this then. What wager? It was a game of poker. A duel between Hurley and Runo.
Poker? What? That tricky card game, you mean?
As a lawyer, I have the perfect poker face. You'll never be able to tell what I'm thinking, said he. But depriving Mr. Naruhodo of his entire fortune was even easier than finding that missing thoroughbred.
It was so infuriating reliving it now still makes me grit my teeth. Sorry, Iris. I had every intention of paying you back the money I owe you, but you'll have to wait, I'm afraid.
Yes, I know. Don't worry. Next month is fine.
Let me guess, Odo. Your old fortune. It was one whole shilling. My entire monthly stipend. And I lost all of it. As I handed it over to Mr. Sholmes, I gritted my teeth so hard my gums started to bleed.
Please, Reno, don't exaggerate. That's a horrible image. What about a lawyer who borrows money from a 10-year-old girl? Now that's a horrible image.
Why do I feel like my reputation with this couple has just fallen through the floor? There are few things more invigorating than taking a man for all he's worth. Phrasing, Sholmes!
Don't be so pleased with yourself, Hurley. It's not as if Runa ever had a chance of winning.
Wait, what? What do you mean by that?
Well, using that special ink I developed, anyone could...
Thank you, Iris. That will do. I'm sure this conversation is proving very dull for everyone. What's done is done. The game is over now. There's no point crying over spilled milk.
Special ink, you say? Well, sir, that sounds like the sort of risky business that's right up my alley.
Oh, Rowley, I love your dauntless spirit. You laugh in the face of danger.
Come on then, Irish. What's this special ink about, eh?
Ah, well, it's what's sometimes called invisible ink. All you have to do is write the suit and number of the reverse side of every card. And with the aid of some special glasses, the whole game is laid bare to you.
Wait, you were wearing glasses last night, weren't you, Mr. Sholmes? You said something along the lines of, my eyesight appears to have suddenly worsened. And the moment you failed to question that as odd was the moment I knew I had won the game. Mind games, was it? Trying to throw me off with your eccentric ways?
So you tell me that Sherman's got to see every card what Odo had?
What? But that's not mind games, that's blatant cheating! My dear fellow, what an accusation. Would you honestly consider me a cheat? Please, I prefer trickster. Whatever you call it, the game doesn't count now. Understand, Mr. Sholmes? Dear me. Well, out of respect for the bad grace with which you take defeat, allow me to return your shilling. Did you hear that, Gina? So give it here.
Aye? Let me out, Ish. This what here one pot bit was mine from the start, no question. That's there one pot bit was lifted from this here Bobby's pocket only a few minutes ago. So you keep sighing. Come on then, where's the evidence? Eh? The law, right? It's all about evidence. I know my stuff.
You see, Mr. Naruhodo, use a trite excuse in court and others will parry it. Or parrot it, rather. Only, whenever I do say that in court, it isn't as a trite excuse, you know.
As I said, sir, that coin has got my blood, sweat and tears all over it.
That's right, it has. Rayleigh's blood, sweat and tears are the evidence. Blood, you say? In that case, it's time for this.
Do you think?
Well, if there's any trace of blood on that coin, we'll soon know about it. All right, Ginny, hold very still.
Eh? What? Right?
Look at that! See there on the coin? It's clearly changed color. In other words, there is blood on this coin.
Once again, as I said, sir, that would be my blood, sweat and tip.
Oh, wait, I've seen blood turn that color before. Yes, I know whose it is. I know whose coin it is.
What?
The rightful owner of this blood-stained shilling is... Runo!
Huh? What, me? And from the appearance of the blood, I would say it's quite fresh, left within the last 24 hours. Within the then in that case...
So, is this a coin what Shrums that off Otto last night in the poker game?
Oh, Runo, do you mean you really did make your gums bleed?
I told you, I was so infuriated to lose, I had to grit my teeth as I handed over the money.
Blimey, you're as hard up as me by the sound of it. But I thought you'd had a proper job.
Oh, come on, Gina, just hand it over, would you? The shilling that's rightfully mine. Oh, fine, all right then. You stop your bleeding staring. I can't I can't really do a Cockney accent. I can only do like Dick Van Dyke bad, really bad. Oh well. I finally have it back. It's like a dream come true. Shh. I nearly had that one in the bag, you know.
That's wonderful news, Bruno. I'm so happy for you. Now then, as you promised. I'd like my money back, please. The shilling I lent you before. You did say that you'd pay it back out of this month's pocket money, didn't you?
No, yes. Well then, I suppose.
My dear fellow, do be kind to your gums.
Looks like that shilling was always destined to be taken from you, sir.
For some reason, the phrase serves you right is floating around in my head.
So, Iris, as promised, here is the shilling I owe you.
Oh, you're repaying me already? Well, thank you. Next month would have been fine, though.
What's it all about anyway? What are you lending Odo money for?
Ah, yes, well, actually, it's because I went to the Lime Street Market yesterday to buy herbs. For Bruno.
Herbs? For Odo? Yes, the tea Mr. Sato left behind is the top quality Gyokuru's tea, but it's just so bitter. So when Iris suggested mixing it with some herbs to make it more palatable, I asked her to buy me some.
That's right. We've made a special Japanese herbal tea with the leftover Gyokuro. I'm going to call it Susie Special Blend. I do hope you'll all try it.
The excruciating bitterness clings to the throat. If you can persuade the bright green gloop to leave the cup.
Why, it sounds quite delicious.
Yeah, right.
Money troubles. Well, it would appear that the shilling's brief adventures are now at an end.
Adventures?
You must agree, my dear fellow, that the coin has made a considerable journey since last night.
Let's see. Originally, it was the coin I was supposed to give to Iris to pay her for the herbs. But then, in our poker duel last night, it passed to you, Mr. Sholmes, who gave it to Iris as spending money.
But then I dropped it here sometime yesterday. Then my beloved Rowley found it a little while ago and picked it up.
Before I was lifted by my pocket by this here diver.
I then used my favourite gun to show up the blood that was on it.
A little slip about Sholmes scamming his cock game last night.
The annulment of which resulted in the coin returning to the ownership of Mr. Naruhodo,
allowing me to pay back the Iris the money I owed her after all. For the herbs she'd bought in order to make Susie's special blend tea.
And now, after all that, the coin is resting safely in my pocket.
Yeah, right, that was an adventure. What are you supposed to take away from it, eh? That this one shilling coin belongs to Iris and Iris alone, I think.
I cannot fault your observation, Mr. Naruhodo.
Well, you know what they say. What goes around comes around.
Why do I get the feeling that Iris knew it was coming around to her from the very beginning?
Priceless, as they say. Well then, my dear fellow, how about this evening we indulge in some bitter tea and a bitter rematch? I'll even allow you to stake the coming month's spending money in advance.
I fold.
And that is all the escapades, except the very last one, which I think has to happen after the last case. I suspect. So we'll leave that one for there, but this is a perfect good place to cut this particular episode, and next time, we'll move on to the fifth and final case in the game. And if you want to see that, you can hit the like, comment, and or subscribe buttons down below. And they're the buttons that'll let you know, when another episode is coming up. And if you want to watch another episode right now, then there is an outside chance that some might be available to people who are members on this channel. Because they get early access to things before I set them live for everyone else. Outside of that, I have a Patreon, a merchandise store, and a tip jar. You can use them if you want to, but you absolutely do not have to. Thank you very much for watching. Remember to wear a mask and wash your hands. We're probably going to have to take more vaccines before this is all over, so, you know, do that. And try to act with solidarity towards those who have less than yourself.